For how can you enjoy the fruits of your labor if not for the process? Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is video 2 of the Kelley Freedom YouTube channel. So thank you for tuning back in. Welcome back. And if whoever watched the previous video, thank you for watching it. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. For the time being, this video is all about our life lately. Me, Gabriel, Summer, our family, what we've been up to, the things that we're focusing on, accomplishments that we've done since I was exonerated all the way up until now, and the series of events that's transpired since then. But first, I want to go ahead and just touch on the quote that I opened up this video with. It's something that I don't know if it's out there or not. It's something I was pondering on and just kind of threw some words together and made a sentence. So I don't know if there is actually a quote of this out there. I just know that this is my version if it is. But for how can you enjoy the fruits of your labor if not for the process? And I felt like from the very beginning, since I was a kid, that mindset, that concept has been so important to me because I wasn't the best in school. You guys, this whole channel, you guys are going to learn a lot about me and the things that I've struggled with as a teen, as an adolescent. And so I grew up with dyslexia, the learning disability. I got held back in the first grade. And so my birthday kind of lined up in the summer. So it really, didn't matter if I would have graduated super young or graduated super late regardless. But I couldn't read very well. And so the process is what I've always known from a child, is to grind through really tough situations that held me back from the rest of my peers. Dyslexia was really tough. I would be taken out of my English class and the grade that I was in all the way up until I was in the 7th grade to go and do remedial learning, remedial reading. And it's a classroom with 6, 7 other kids where you go through exercises that help you read faster, help you understand words, spell. And so I outgrew that around 6th grade, and I got integrated back into regular English. And so I really don't struggle with it anymore when I write or read. I do realize, and anybody who has dyslexia, they'll know this, is that you have dyslexic moments, if anybody's ever said that. Some people kind of say it like a throwaway thing when they kind of have a brain fart or something, but if you have dyslexia, you will have it for the rest of your life. And so the process is what I've always known, especially in athletics too, knowing that if I was going to go to college, it wasn't going to be for academics. Even though I tried and I was a B, C, sometimes A student, I was very athletically inclined. For my grade, I was always bigger, I was always faster. And so I tapped in and honed in on my skills and the things that were athletically special about me. And so I zeroed in on football. And so I intensified the process of getting faster, stronger, learning, and watching film. And so that's another kind of idea of the process. And then, of course, when my whole life came crashing down with the wrongful conviction, the false accusation, really, and then all into the wrongful conviction, and then going through all prison and making the choices to keep going and not quit. And I always kept my family in mind. I kept my family first in the forefront of my mind when I was having to make decisions to get up every day and live life the best that I possibly could in the circumstances that were given to me. And if it wasn't for a faith that I tapped into, getting to know who Jesus is, not only what he did, what he came for, but who he is in my life and what I've accepted him to be in my life, which is my Lord and Savior. If not for him and learning the guiding principles on getting through tough situations from his scripture, then I don't think I would be here today either. And that was a process, especially with the bitterness and the unforgiveness that I didn't want to let go. But I had to in order to keep going. And if I didn't, I don't think I would be here today making this video. So if it's not for the fruits of our labor, if it's not for our effort, then how can we enjoy the process? And the process is absolutely everything, because how great are the views on top of the mountain if you didn't make the climb? And I always think about that when I'm on the trails and I'm running ultra marathons, and I see this peak, or I see this summit, right? And this past ultra marathon I did in Utah, this 100-miler, there's a mountain that I had to run up and climb, and it's called Cobb's Peak. And the peak was absolutely beautiful because I reached that peak around 7 o'clock in the morning after running through the night. And it was a tough night. I mean, if you've watched the recap video of that 100-miler, I was absolutely miserable. I was throwing up all night. I had an electrolyte imbalance. I was severely dehydrated. I was hoping and hanging on to dear life that I could recover and finish this thing, because it was miserable. But I got through it, and it took effort, and it took a process. And at the very end, when I finally finished that race 33 hours later, I've had this sense of accomplishment, this happiness of accomplishing something that at one point seemed impossible to me. Running 100 miles. Running 100 miles in altitude, that is, seemed impossible to me. Little old football, or big old football player who's never ran more than a mile in his life, running 100 miles. And it took the process of training for over a year, to get to that point of running 100 miles. So, and then right now I'm training for a big 100-miler in February, and I recite this quote here to myself every morning as I get up and I go to the gym for an hour and a half, and I go and put the miles in, and I go walk uphill on a treadmill. And so if it's not for the process, right, then that view, that peak, is not going to be as beautiful. So I'm learning to appreciate the process, and I'm learning to love it. So moving onward. Let me see here. Okay. So I'll talk about life lately. So we, as you guys know, I was exonerated at the end of 2019. Gabriel and I got married on January 19th, 2020. So right before COVID. Thank God we made the cut, because we just heard horror stories of people not being able to have their wedding. Tons of money being spent on a wedding, and thank God we fitted in right before the world changed. And I say changed because it absolutely has changed. I mean, things have been born from COVID, one of them being my business. Speaking of that, before my wedding in January, we went axe throwing, and I developed a love for axe throwing. Even though I don't practice it, I don't compete or anything, I just saw it as a great business opportunity. I'm a guy who loves putting wood together and drilling it together, and I've always wanted to have an axe throwing target in my backyard. And COVID hit, and I had lost my personal training job in a gym, and I had a lot of time on my hands, like everybody else did. And got in the garage and started tinkering around and built myself a little axe throwing target for some wood from some wood in Home Depot. And I went outside with my father-in-law. We had been living with our in-laws, Gabriel's parents at the time, and we had a blast. And I kind of wanted more of a legit target, because mine fell apart quickly. I just put it together really quick, but I wanted a little bit more of a legit target. And so I started looking up online, like on Amazon, and just online, Googling, axe throwing targets, and nobody was actually selling the product. I had just did the service, right? We went to an axe throwing range and threw with my groomsmen for my bachelor's party, and that was just popping off. Every lane was filled, and it was like a Tuesday night of all nights. And so I knew that it was a good business to get into at least, but I didn't want to go and lease out a building and build a bunch of lanes and run an axe throwing range, right? So I just did more research about the product, and nobody was actually manufacturing these things and selling them. And I knew that the axe throwing wave was huge at the time. So why isn't somebody selling these? So I went to my garage for like a week and started learning how to put the type of wood you need for axe throwing together, which is mostly cottonwood or type of spruces. And so did a bunch of research, built a bunch of prototypes, tested the prototypes, found settled on a really good one that I can just put on Etsy really quick and see if it sells. Made like 3 of them. Well, they sold in like 1 day. And so I knew that there might be something here. And so I built like 3 more product lines and different type, right? And I put them on Etsy and they sold. And then so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to Amazon with this thing. I had no idea at the time how much of a beast Amazon actually is when it comes to products, especially if it's like a niche product and it's in high demand and there's not a lot of supply. And so I brought that to it, and next thing you know, I'm selling, 50 targets in a week. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself too. When I really figured out that this was going to be a thing, that I could run with this, was right around Father's Day of 2020 during COVID, and I hadn't put it on online yet. This was before Etsy, Amazon, right? And it was more so like I built a couple or 1 or 2 big tall ones and put it on Facebook Marketplace, something that you clearly cannot ship because it's huge. It's 8 foot tall. And they sold in the Austin area. And so that's when I knew that it was big. And by Father's Day, I mean, we had built and delivered dozens of these targets. So it was super cool to see that. And then that's when I went to online with it all, and it just took off. And, that turned into me getting out of the garage and leasing out a small little, 1,400 square foot shop and warehouse in Leander. Was there for about a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. And then I had bought a property out here in Liberty Hill as an investment, and I built a shop on it, and I built my own little shop and warehouse. And so as of today, we are building, shipping, and running Tomahawk Targets LLC out of that building. And as of today, 5 years later, we have sold probably over 15,000 targets. So it has been a good living. It has paid the bills. I have 2 employees, and orders continue to come in daily. And so I have no hurry to continue to scale this thing. I know it's a niche market, and every one thing I'm coming to understand, and I've understood this when I took business classes at UT, is every product has a shelf life, and unless you become innovative with your product and you keep people wanting it, then every product on a shelf will expire. And so right now we're in kind of like the innovative stages of tweaking our products, and I do all of it. And so yeah, still a small 3-man show, but it's going good. And back to where we were at with the wedding. Gabriel and I got married, had a wonderful wedding, had all of our friends, family, people that meant so much to us. Jake Bryden married us. He officiated the wedding. Keith Hampton kind of sent us off. I now pronounce he's like, now I introduce Mr. and Mrs. Gabriel and Greg Kelley. And so it was really cool. The reception was amazing. I had ripped my pants on apple bottom jeans, Get Low song. I had ripped my pants, got a little too low. I can party. And even though I seem like I'm very committed to fitness and continuing to be a loner sometimes on working and fitness and running ultras, I like to get out there and have a good time with the people that I love. And so and then after that, I had an awesome opportunity to play some college football, do a full circle moment. The same defensive coordinator who had offered me when I was in high school, Neil Nethery, he offered me a full ride to go play for Eastern Michigan University. Now, granted, this is, I had been training to get football back in my life. I had been training with Jeremy Hills and all of his NFL guys he has underneath him that he trains. He's an elite sports performance coach. So I had been getting my agility and my athleticism back. Even though it had been 5, 6, 7 years, I had been the fittest I've ever been, the strongest, the fastest, the most explosive I had ever been. And if you go far enough back into my Instagram, you'll see those days when I was training with those guys, and had a great time. and I loved every bit of it. But something shifted along the way after I had opened up. I got married, really. Something shifted, and I had opened up a business that was taking off a little bit. And then I was offered a full ride scholarship to go play football. I immediately hopped on playing football again. And I'm glad I did, because it was an amazing opportunity to strap up those pads again. Even though it was in Michigan and it was far away from home, Michigan's nothing like Texas. It was amazing to be able to have a full circle moment. There wasn't a day where I wasn't emotional to put the helmet back on. And there wasn't a time where I didn't count each play to be my last one, because at one point it was my last one in high school, the end of my junior year. And my last play ever was a Hail Mary against Flower Bluff. And that was the lasting impression before I had finally put my my helmet and my shoulder pads back on to go and play collegiate ball up in Michigan. And so did that for a year, had a fun time, missing home tremendously, missing my new wife, my bride, Gabriel. And this is not just some normal wife to me either. This is a woman who stuck by my side through the toughest, most worst situation I feel like anybody could go through. And yeah, it was an amazing time to go play college football, and I did it for a year, and I'm glad I did. There was a time where I had to make a decision to hang up, because I had a lot more things going on for me in Texas, and it was an extremely tough position for me to be in, because Gabriel and I wanted to buy a house. I had a business that still needed me. Gabriel and I wanted to just move on to the next chapter of our life as newlyweds. And Gabriel was also she had just became the director of the Move Crew, which is a company in her parents, the whole family's dance company, called Move Dance and Fitness. And she had been pouring into these kids, and I knew that was her passion. She absolutely loved it so much, and I missed her. I missed her while I was up in Michigan. And so at the end of all of it, when I put everything on the table, it was really hard for me to stay in Michigan, and if I knew I was going to stay there for 4 years. And so I had to make a decision: football, playing college football, or moving on to the next chapter of my life after I'm exonerated. And all of this too, to say that the documentary had came out, months prior to that, and it was picking up steam. A lot of people had been messaging me on Instagram and social medias, and I had been booking speaking engagements and podcasts, and so it was just a lot. And I knew that I should be in this chapter of my life. And lastly, I didn't come to this realization until I had put football back into my life, and I stepped on that field. When I was in prison, I was so focused on survival mode and trying to find new passions. And where it really just woke me up in all of it was when I was in prison. I had learned a lot about power tools and working with my hands and working with wood, welding a little bit. That was part of how I passed my time, was continuing to learn new things. And so when I had played football again, it felt like I was trying to keep an 18-year-old alive. But in reality, I was 25, and I was a little bit older than everybody else. I was a lot older than everybody else. And I had other passions, and it wasn't just football anymore. I had multiple identities outside of my faith. I had tons of different skills now in my toolbox, and it wasn't just football anymore. Football was everything to me as an 18-year-old. But now I'm a husband. I'm a business owner. I want to be a son more than anything. I've got now I got a father and mother-in-law. I've got in-laws that are sisters now. Gabriel and I want to buy a house. I've got a documentary about my whole life. I've got speaking engagements that they want me to go on a stage and tell my story. And I've got all these other things that I know that I could be good at. And football is not just the only thing I'm good at anymore. So that was the kind of that was the final straw of just making the decision to hang it up. And I came back home the next spring, after the next spring into the summer, and I came back home, and Gabriel and I bought the house. We bought the house that we're previously in right now, and we had lived there for a little over 2 years. I was continuing to grow the business. I had about halfway into it, I had got into ultra running. I've gotten into running. I got to a point in my life where I kind of reflected on, okay, what are things that I hate right now? And maybe I should, that I know that would be good for me. Because it was also a time in my life, I think right around 2023, when I had started to feel the trauma coming back up. And I think one of the first bouts of trauma that I had ever felt, like PTSD, was actually before I went to Michigan to play football, right around like summer of 2020. And I had started pushing some carts in Costco because there was nowhere to work. So I was pushing some carts in Costco. And then I had taken a shift that night in Costco to stock some shelves. And I remember one time the lights went out, and it was like a power outage, and I was stocking some shelves, and everybody, all the employees that were stocking shelves, when the lights went out, they started like acting like animals. They started making animal noises. They started screaming. And so the lights were off, everybody's screaming. And the last time that had ever happened to me, I was in the middle of a maximum security prison on a really bad cell block. And that's when people were, who had hits out on each other, were going after each other. And so people were screaming, and not out of foolishness or out of a joke, but out of violence. And so that's when I immediately hit my back against the wall in Costco, and I had started breathing heavy a little bit. And when the lights came back on, I immediately, it blew me back. I asked myself, what was that? And, I kind of thought through it a little bit, shook it off, and went back to work. So didn't really think anything other after that. And then, I went off to go play football, and I got an offer, right? And so that was the first, I think that if I think back, that was the first time I had ever realized that I have trauma. And, in 2023, when we were living at the house in Blockhouse, our first home, I started not sleeping very well, and I don't know why. And then I started feeling uneasy, and then I started small little things would irritate me, like things that wouldn't irritate me, and I wasn't handling stress very well. I would lash out and get angry and have an attitude towards the people that I love, and that didn't sit well with me either. And and then I started researching a lot of it, and I realized that these are things that could start coming up after you feel like you're in a comfortable place now, and you're not living on the edge anymore. So the trauma, the aftermath of it all, right? The scars are starting to show themselves. And so time goes on, and I started figuring out that I kind of have this enjoyment for running. And anybody who's ever ran ultra marathons, they know who David Goggins is. And I read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me, and I thought it was an amazing book. And David talks a lot about in that book about you should force yourself to do something that sucks every day of your life, because it makes you hard. It makes your mind hard. It fortifies your mind to get through a really tough situation. You're voluntarily putting yourself in it. So when something involuntarily happens in your life, something comes knocking that you didn't invite, you're able to handle it because you've been here before. This is not uncharted territory. So you know how to handle hard, and you know how to do hard better. And so I knew I knew like in 2023, when I was focusing on business and I was focusing on coming home, and Gabriel and I were watching Love Island, and it was just like Netflix and chill, get up, go to work, go to the gym, do a few curls, do a bench press, do a couple pull-ups, come back home. And it was just a routine of almost like comfort. That's when I didn't feel like myself anymore, because this is not me. This wasn't me for years. And so how can I get back to me? And after I had read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, I went out for a run. And I went out for a run until I couldn't run anymore, just to kind of feel what it feels like to get to that moment again, to get to that point where it burns, it hurts. And now I've realized how important voluntary suffering is. Voluntary suffering, not this type of suffering that's bad for you, that's going to hurt you in life, but the suffering that's molding you and that's going to fortify you. Almost as if you're like this blade and this blacksmith, and this blade is not durable. It's very flimsy, and this blacksmith sees it and it puts it back into the fire, beats on it, puts it in the water, or puts it back into the fire, beats on it, puts it back into the fire until he feels like it is durable enough to go out and carry out the purpose it's supposed to do. That's when he'll put it into the water and harden it. And I've always thought about that now that I go out there and I go run, is this: I am making myself harder. I'm fortifying my mind. I'm fortifying my body. I'm keeping myself fit and healthy to be a husband, to be a dad. And at that time I wasn't a dad, so I just wanted to stay healthy. And then I didn't realize that at that moment until now, and this is why I fell in love with ultra running, is how great it is for your mind, how great it is for your psyche, especially people that have trauma. It is a therapy session for people that have trauma. It has been proven that it increases your mood, it regulates hormones, it gets your pituitary gland firing up again. It increases circulation in all aspects, from blood to hormones to fluids, everything. Running is probably the most beneficial aerobic exercise you could ever do. And it gets your heart healthy and your lungs healthy. And so I started seeing the benefits of it. And not just running in general, but the process of when I figured out that I want to go do an ultra marathon. That was a funny decision for me, because I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to see what these ultras are about. So I signed up for a 50K. That was about 6 weeks out. I said, okay, I'm going to start training for it. I start Googling how to train for an ultra marathon, and it's about mileage. It's about volume. Get the miles underneath your legs. Learn how to mostly run and hike in a zone 2, zone 3 heart rate. And learn the nutrition part of it. Make sure that your electrolytes are balanced, because it's more than a marathon. Ultra marathons are classified as races that are more than a marathon. So anything more than 26.2. So a 50K is 31 miles. 100K is 62 miles. So and 100 miler is 100 miles. So I want to start off with a 50K. So I started, the Austin Falls Ultra was my first one back in April of 2024. And I ran it. I got like 21st out of like 50 or 60 people. And I had a great time. And it was extremely hard and it was extremely tough. But the sense of accomplishment that I got after it, I did something that a very small marginal percentage of the world does. It's already a very small percentage of the world actually runs marathons. An even smaller percentage runs ultra marathons. And so as the distance gets higher and longer, that figure gets smaller and smaller. And so the sense of accomplishment, and then afterwards, just this, this mental fortitude that I left that trail with. And it made me hungry to go do 100K. I did one more 50K after that, and then I went to the 100K. And then I became addicted to it. And then I wanted to do a 100 miler. And so I did a 100 miler. And so now I feel like this is just something that I do and I get to do. And I'm so thankful to do. And it's just another testament to that quote about the process. Um, yeah, and then so it came a time now when we were at the old house that Gabriel told me she was pregnant. And one of the most greatest moments of my life, other than being exonerated, getting married, and then when Gabriel told me she was pregnant, and then when Summer was born. Most beautiful moments. Um, Having a baby with somebody that I love, someone that I really want to love for the rest of my life, Gabriel, it wasn't promised to us. Especially when she decided she wanted to stand by my side through all of it. Um, I would have gotten out at 44 if I had served all 25 years. And she would be 44. And at the age of 44, nothing's stopping me from having a baby, but her time would have passed. And so Gabriel had taken that, she had counted that cost when she decided she wanted to fight for me and stand by my side. So having Summer and raising Summer and bringing Summer into this world, it's a miracle to us. I've always considered Summer as our prize. She is literally our prize. She is our trophy. And I've dedicated myself to treat her as such and to talk about her as such because she deserves it. Yeah, it's just amazing to be her dad, and it's amazing to see Gabriel being her mom because Summer was never promised to us. We didn't know if she was going to be here. We didn't know if we would ever have the chance. The process, the fruits of our labor. Yeah, it's just crazy. Sometimes I lose words, just trying to find how to express it. Summer came, and now this next thing I'm gonna say, I'm gonna talk about things that you probably shouldn't do after having a baby, because now we're gonna get into the time where Gabriel went through a really tough season of her life, or a tough chapter of her life. Hopefully it's not a season, hopefully it never comes back, but a tough chapter of her life. We were so gung-ho in raising a family, and we were in a good financial position. Business was good. We had saved up enough money to sell that house. Gabriel and I, we've always, when it came to finances, we've always loved to pay off debt really fast. So we were in a good position with the previous house. It was almost paid off. And we were like, let's get our family home, and if I could do it all over again, I probably would have waited, because even though we love this house, we absolutely love this house that we're living. It's it's a beautiful family home. It's got a pool that we can create memories in. But I didn't understand, like, at that point, I probably should have researched a little bit better, but I didn't understand the hormones that women actually go through during postpartum. I knew postpartum was real, and I knew that there was going to be a hormone difference there, but I didn't know the effects of relocating into another house. The previous house we lived in, Gabriel was 3 minutes away from work. Now she's 20 something minutes away. I'm closer to my shop, so that's better. That's good, but it's not about me. And it was really tough because Gabriel had breastfed for about 3 months, and then like her milk went away, and she got really busy too. She had to go back to work. So her milk went away, and when you get off breastfeeding, that's when the hormones can start, coming and going, and things can get really jacked up. And so Gabriel fell into a postpartum depression. And, if you never went through postpartum depression, you don't really know what to expect. But this was bad, like really bad. Gabriel had sometimes had a hard time getting out of bed. She didn't have any motivation. She had lost love for her job, for her career. I've always known Gabriel for chasing her passions. Everything she does, she's passionate about. And if she's not passionate about it, she's not going to waste any time on it. And so just seeing her fall out of love with it temporarily, it was really hard, because now I literally saw this beautiful, vibrant woman turn into a shell. And if it wasn't for our family, if it wasn't for David and Tracy, Mackenzie, Evan, my mom, even my brothers, friends and family, you guys know who you are. If you came over and helped, thank you so much. Because now we are, we've saw the fruits of your labor, and now that Gabriel is better, we just sit back and we talk. It's like, man, do you remember when you were going through all that? And man, if it wasn't for that person that came, or if it wasn't for this person that would come at this time, and I remember calling friends and family, like asking for help. Could you come over, please? And of course, we didn't share a lot of this in real time, and now we are. But anybody that knew, thank you for continuing to care for us, especially Gabriel. But to see her now, she's back. It was like a light just turned right back on for her. And she's back. She's loving life. She always says, I love my life. I love our life. I love our family. I love our little girl. So life's been amazing. We're at this point now where we live in a beautiful home and here in Liberty Hill, Texas. And, business is good. I'm continuing to train. I've always felt like if I'm not going out there and trying to chase a goal, then I'm not appreciating and living fully free. And I remember somebody telling me, I was like, I don't know how to repay everybody that has fought for me in my life. There's so many perfect strangers out there that helped me when I needed help. And I feel this burden, I feel this debt to do something to repay the people that have helped me. And I remember Jake Bryden telling me the only thing that you could ever do to repay anybody that stepped up to the plate to fight for you is to go live as free as you possibly can be. And to me, that means chasing things that I really want to accomplish in life now that I have a second chance at it. So that has been life lately. God has been good. I'm continuing to strengthen my faith, especially as a father now. I'm kind of rededicating to tap back into studying. Gabriel and I, we want to rededicate, tapping back into praying with Summer every single day. There's nothing in this world more important than a praying mother and father to their children. And so we're continuing to exercise that. And I'm trying to see if I'm forgetting anything. I don't think I am. But that's it for now, y'all. Thank you for tuning in for video 2. Hope you guys continue to follow along here. Ask more questions, y'all, in the comments. I would love to answer them. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And take care. God bless.